Hi, Alexis.
Hello, Dr. Rachel. Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Well, also, it's been quite an exciting day around here. There's a lot going on, lots of exciting events we have coming up. So, if you've joined us, please stay tuned. Stick around because we have some good news for you. Today's topic is emotional intelligence and how it makes you more successful. It's a topic that Dr. Rachel Hannam has been sharing in a leadership course she's been running with an architecture firm here in Brisbane. So we are fortunate enough to have Rachel's brain to pick, and I thought we'd start. I'll just give you a brief rundown of what we've got in store for you. What is emotional intelligence? Itching to hear that from you, Rachel, because a definition helps enormously to recognise it in our lives.
Yeah.
I'd love to walk through 10 of the qualities that help us identify as emotionally intelligent. And we'd love your feedback on which ones you'd like us to hone in on today. And then we'd love to fill you in on how you can meet with us in person and get some very direct hands-on experience of applying emotional intelligence in your life.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Rachel, please, what is emotional intelligence?
Well, to state it really simply, it's the ability to monitor your own and other people's emotions, to be able to discriminate between different emotions. So recognize the difference between anger and frustration, or sadness and disappointment, for example, and to be able to label our emotions appropriately. There's an old saying in counseling psychology of name it to tame it. So when we have language for something, it helps us face it and deal with it. Emotional intelligence also includes using a knowledge and an awareness of our emotions to inform our thinking and our behavior. And it's really viewed these days as a skills model or an abilities model that we can get better at perceiving, understanding, and managing emotions. Yes, like everything in human behavior, some people are naturally better at it than others. But it's a skill set that we can all continue to improve upon.
So it's about monitoring our emotions, distinguishing between ones that might be similar, getting some nuance, getting into the grey, being able to face it. We've spoken about that numerous times in this space, turning to face our feelings because they have value for us and in turn others. And yes, as you've said, informing our decisions. So emotions can help us recognise what's important to us and to understand what's important to others. So yes, I love knowing that it's a skill that we can improve upon.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's why I teach it in organizations, because most organizations realize these days that it's important that their leaders have a certain degree of emotional intelligence if they're going to be able to care for people, influence people, and make good decisions about people. The work gets done through people, right? So emotional intelligence helps us, interact with people.
That is very interesting for me because at this stage of my business, I am needing to learn the skill of delegation. Not sure if any of our listeners also relate to that, but I've just said to my daughter tonight, it's just occurred to me that if I'm going to achieve what I need to achieve this lifetime, I'm going to have to do some serious delegations. So before we go on to the 10 qualities of emotional intelligence that we're interested in your feedback, you guys who are listening, which ones you are nailing, which ones you need to sharpen. How do you see it? How do you see emotional intelligence in leaders? Are there particular role models that come to mind, or you think, is there anything that's come up during your work with the architecture firm that has helped you to link leadership and emotional intelligence?
Well, I've run EI workshops in many organizations. So yeah, I do. A whole lot of different people I've worked with over time come into my mind as you ask me that question. And some of them are naturally high on emotional intelligence. They're high on self-awareness. They have good social skills. They can self-regulate, which means they can manage stress well. They can find deep up intrinsic motivation. These are all components of emotional intelligence. But I remember a pilot that I worked with. I did a leadership program in an organization who do healthcare in rural areas. So I was working with multidisciplinary groups, including pilots. And I remember this one older pilot who, he started out admitting, I don't think I'm very emotionally intelligent. I'm not always very good with people, but he paid close attention through the 12-month course that I was running. And he really improved upon these skills. He was very intrinsically motivated in his work, but he could articulate that better by the end. He had more empathy and social skills. He got better at managing stress, and he certainly increased his self-awareness by the end. So he really showed me that, although there are traits that are inherent to us, that make us more or less emotionally intelligent naturally, we can certainly learn these abilities. And it was a remarkable transformation in this person that I worked with. And I also think of, talking about politicians is always fraught, I know, but I remember, I think it was Barack Obama who got teary when he was speaking in the aftermath of a tragedy at a press conference. And I'm always impressed with leaders who show genuine emotion. It's pretty hard to fake tears. Tears communicate a genuine feeling. And I'm always personally in admiration of leaders who can express their emotions in a way that influences us all to feel more empathy for one another. So he was another person who came to my mind when you asked me just now.
Well, and as you're speaking, I'm remembering Steve Jobs, who called heavily on his emotional intelligence to provide a vision which inspired his people to emotionally invest in what they were doing.
And he is someone who improved his emotional intelligence skills over the course of his adult life. He really developed those skills. He wasn't very good at them at the beginning of his career.
That's interesting. I'm thinking also of a couple of clients when you spoke about politicians and the transformation that you saw in your pilot. There's a couple of clients I've been working with quite intensively, and they both showed up independently with quite severe digestive issues. And through the course of our discussion, they both acknowledged that they wore a kind of a mask. One for business reasons, to be able to, I think he would probably say, to keep his people happy. He spends a lot of his time in relationships, so he's a relationship-oriented leader. But his digestive system was carrying the tension. So we've been working on a kind of a congruence, and I think emotions can help us to be more authentic with our people, and therefore more authentic in our own bodies. And the very same situation with the politician who I'm thinking of. And she has felt for a long time she has to put on a face, and she's now starting to really open up and share herself authentically. And her health has improved drastically, and I would say her life satisfaction has also improved.
Yeah. Emotional intelligence is such a broad term, and it really does cover our own self-awareness and self-regulation skills, our ability to validate ourselves and have empathy for ourselves, but also our ability to relate to others authentically, empathically, and have good boundaries, like all the stuff that you and I talk about. And many of the topics that we post about on the MVP Facebook page would come under the umbrella of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, it's a good broad umbrella for us. So let's have a look at these 10 qualities, which were quite surprising, I've got to say.
Okay.
The first one is that emotionally intelligent people are not perfectionists. And I think there's a bit of a shift in cultural thinking around this. Yeah, what's been your experience?
Oh, I absolutely agree, because perfectionism is that mask you were talking about before. It's driven by fear, and fear of shame, and fear of judgment, including judgment from yourself. And perfectionism can in itself become a mental illness. You know, it can turn into OCD. And so it's not good for us. So instead of perfectionism, we have self-compassion, we try our hardest, we know our purpose, we do our best, and we forgive ourselves when we can't be perfect, and we just work on progress rather than perfection. And that's better for everyone around us, and also better for us. So yeah, that's definitely a good one to put right at the top.
Yes. And I know for many successful people, perfectionism seems to be a driver. And yet there comes a point where it becomes apparent that it's driving them into the ground. And that was certainly my story in my early 20s. And yeah, I know that you've also, your PhD was in burnout, so you're fully aware of that too, Rachel. And that leads into a number of the other qualities, like knowing strengths and weaknesses, knowing our personal strengths, and knowing where to outsource. Empathy is on the list. As we've spoken about, allowing for authenticity and congruence.
Now, just so people know, this is the list that you posted earlier about 1 o'clock this afternoon. So people can look at this list on our Facebook page.
That's right. Yes, you can check it out. And please do post in the comments if there's one that stands out to you as something that you would like to invest in. We have Dr. Rachel's mind to pick on how we can best do that.
Yeah, and I would really, I'm keeping an eye on the comments. So let us know which of these 10 qualities of people high in emotional intelligence you think you're really good at. I'm not a perfectionist anymore, so I think I'm going to give myself a high score on the first one. I gave up on my perfectionism years ago, and I think it was the moment my husband said to me, Rachel, you can't be all things to all people all the time. That's when my last shred of perfectionism withered away, I think.
What would you give yourself out of 10? 10 being a really good balance of self-compassion and self-discipline.
I would give myself an 8 out of 10 nowadays, but once upon a time, much lower. I was a dyed-in-the-wool perfectionist in my 20s as well. Yeah.
What about knowing your strengths and weaknesses? What would you give yourself?
I'd give myself an 8 out of 10 these days as well. I know my weaknesses. How about you? What would you give yourself?
Oh, well, when I watch these videos, I become very aware that I must be hiding from my weaknesses. So I think I've got some room to grow there. I'm going to give myself a 6.5 out of 10 for knowing my strengths and weaknesses, an area I'd love to focus on more. Empathy, I mean, I think it's hard to do what we do without being pretty strong on empathy. What are you going to give yourself?
Yeah, I mean, when I practice empathy, I'm going to give myself an A+, but I don't always practice it because, you know, sometimes my emotional spare change purse is a bit low on change, as it is for all of us. And I'm aware that I'm not, practicing empathy to the degree I could be. So I'm not going to give myself a 9 or a 10 on that one, maybe a 7.5.
Okay. I'm recording this. We could review your report card next semester, Rachel.
We are recording this because it's on Facebook and it will be there for all of time.
That's right. Everyone will know. What about your agility? How good are you at embracing change?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. What about if you had to change like your whole software program, your whole booking system, how would you go?
No. I think I'd be cactus. I'd give myself a 2 out of 10 on that one, probably.
Yeah, that's a tough one. What
Yeah,
about personal change? How are you at, adjusting to what would happen? Personal change. Changing relationships, friends, coming and going.
I think I'm probably better at that one. How about you?
I'd like to think that I'm pretty agile. I mean, certainly in business, I'm quick to pivot, as they say. So I like to think I'm pretty agile. I think, some of those massive life changes, like the loss of a parent, would probably really challenge my ability to embrace change. But it's something that I actively prepare for now. I actively look at what's on the horizon, including a giant moon outside. Excuse the distraction, which in fact, so I'm going to give myself a 7 out of 10 for embracing change.
Okay, and are we getting some comments? Let me see. I'd love to hear comments from anyone who's watching about which of these you've heard so far. Being perfectionistic, embracing change, being empathic, knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
A beautiful segue into the next one on the list, which is focus, the ability to focus and not easily distracted. So I'm going to have to say, after my last moon comment, that I could probably improve my focus.
Sometimes, a little surprising comment keeps people's attention. I think that's okay.
Thanks, darling. That's very kind. But you can see how saying focus would certainly improve emotional intelligence. I know, for example, I really love it when you pick up a conversation that I've kind of put down and possibly even forgotten about. You pick that up again, and I would say that leaders would have that capacity as well to hold conversations, even if there's a bit of space, a bit of time between conversations, to be able to pick up again and say, oh, hey, how's your cat?
Yeah, that is a skill. And in psychology, we call that tracking. And I've taught myself to do good tracking, through practice as a therapist, as I'm sure you have as well. Picking up the threads, circling back to some piece that doesn't feel complete in a dialogue. And also tracking, how it's going and how the connection is going or not. And just keeping track of where people are at, where conversations are at. Good leaders do that really well, yeah.
They're also self-motivated. Those who are emotionally intelligent are described as self-motivated. And my understanding here is that they are guided by their own values as opposed to society's expectation, or as you spoke earlier, avoiding extrinsic motivation and rather being intrinsically motivated.
Yeah, a good leader is an authentic leader. And this is not just, we're talking about leaders because you and I have been telling you about the emotional intelligence work I've been doing in an organization with their leaders. But this applies to people in relationships, families, friendships, even self-leadership, which is a bit of a buzzword in the last few years. But that ability to track what's going on in yourself and around you and stay focused. And what was the last thing you said? I've just already forgotten.
Being self-motivated.
Oh, motivation. Yeah. And knowing motivation, that brings authenticity. People can tell if you're primarily motivated selfishly, just to get things for yourself, by money or status or power. Whereas, when we know our values, we know our purpose. That's part of emotional intelligence. Our values, our needs, and our purpose are intimately intertwined with our emotional life, of course.
The more we unpack this, the more I see how central it is for all of us in a family, home environment, as well as a work environment. And I'm excited about our workshops.
Oh yes, our 3 workshops. Let's talk about them soon, but there's a couple of comments appearing that I'd love to address.
Yes.
One is, I might work backwards. Joe says emotional regulation in stressful times, meeting deadlines, that kind of thing. Any tips? So pressure. So you're talking about time pressure, which we've all experienced, and maybe workload pressure, and how to regulate yourself under those conditions.
Great question. It reminds me of something that you and I were discussing with our beautiful colleague yesterday around, I am talking to Rachel. Right now, I am listening to a Facebook Live. Right now, I'm sitting on a chair. So, Joe, if you're feeling pressured and looking to maintain an emotional intelligence and ability to self-regulate, you may find just spelling out the obvious to yourself helps you to get centered and grounded and focused, even as simple as that, what I'm doing right now.
It's a great technique. I call it running a commentary on your own actions as you do them, a bit like you're commentating a cricket game, only you're commentating your own life in the moment here and now, including I am breathing. You don't even need to change a breath. As soon as you say I'm breathing, you'll naturally breathe a bit differently just because you bring your attention to your breath. I'm driving, I am walking, I'm opening the front door, I'm trying to find my keys. I'm trying to find my keys. I'm finding my keys. I'm looking for my keys, as opposed to, oh my God, I can't find my keys. I'm such an idiot. Why do I? Because I think when we're under pressure, time pressure or workload pressure, the inner critic kicks in, the catastrophizing thinking patterns kick in, and that makes everything twice as difficult. And so this running commentary that you've just described, Alexis, is very grounding. Exactly right, Joe. Very grounding. That was a great question. And of course, breathing, feeling your feet, grounding yourself through the body. Is I know what you also teach, Alexis.
Yeah, as you were talking about finding the keys, that's a great example, Rachel, because you're reminding me that when we do that, we're also facilitating our metacognition. So it's quite natural to say, I'm reaching into my bag, I'm looking for my keys. I'm now thinking about where my keys are. That facilitates already an element of metacognition. I'm noticing my breathing is just one step removed from the narrative. I'm feeling more relaxed for noticing my breath.
Yeah. And what Alexis means by metacognition is just that pure awareness that we can apply to what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I doing? Just that one step back. Meta meaning kind of standing outside of and looking in. That's my understanding of that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Like a meta-analysis. Yes, is it one step removed, analysing the analysis.
Yeah.
And that ties in beautifully, before your next comment, on one of the other lines that or qualities of emotionally intelligent people is that they focus on problem solving. So your key analogy was perfect, that we focus on the problem rather than the catastrophe.
Yeah, and solutions. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What can I do? What are my options? Rather than, oh my God, I shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. I never, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's easy to do. The hard thing to do is focus on what's my problem? What are some potential solutions? It sounds really obvious to say it out loud. And yet when we're really stressed, it takes practice. There's another great quote here from, question, and I'd be interested in your thoughts, Alexis. Mia says, do you think perfectionism is largely found in women, as women have fought and still fight for their place in the world professionally? I think that there is some truth to that, but I think I've met many men who are very hard on themselves as well. What about you, Alexis? What do you think?
Yeah, that's really got me thinking, Mia. We need to talk more about this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's a gendered thing. I think that probably it's a human thing. across both is my sense. It may manifest in different ways.
But if we look at perfectionism as being driven by a fear of judgment and therefore a fear of shame or a fear of rejection or a fear of exclusion or a fear of criticism, this is what perfectionism is driven by. It's different to striving for excellence, as Brené Brown says. It's that thing of, I don't want to be judged. I don't want people to think negatively of me. And I guess women have had a harder time being seen, maybe proving themselves to be as credible in some professions as men. I think that has gotten a lot better in certain fields. But yeah, they may have even more fears in some industries around not being accepted and being judged. But many men I know also are driven by fear of judgment and criticism as well. And this is unavoidable, this fear, but we don't want it to be in the driver's seat driving our vehicle. We want to be driven by something much more at our core, much more around our values and our deepest needs and desires. This is what emotionally intelligent people do.
They're also known, emotionally intelligent people are known to have a good balance between work and play. And I think that makes sense because emotions come out when we're playing. When we're with family, when we're with people we love, we're more open emotionally. So that then fuels human to human understanding in the workplace. And equally, if we were too heavily weighted toward home, perhaps a need for contribution within the community or a broader reach, that would certainly help to give confidence to the way that we relate. So yeah, I think that balance is key to emotional intelligence and a manifestation of building the skill of emotional intelligence.
Yes, I would agree. Now, so there are 5, in the most recent popular model of emotional intelligence, there are 5 key elements. We won't go through them all today, but we are going to be going through those 5 key components of emotional intelligence in our upcoming course that you and I are running in person very soon. Can you speak a bit about that, Alexis?
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for keeping an eye on the time. We have an opportunity to engage with us in person over 3 Sunday mornings. We have one in June, one in July, one in August. And you'll have the opportunity to not only skill up, hearing and bringing to the forefront of your mind the qualities of emotional intelligence, but you'll have a lot of opportunity to practice and apply. So we'd love you to join us. We're hosting an information session this Tuesday morning. Rachel and I walk on the river every Tuesday morning. Even if it's raining, we'll be there. So we'd love to see you.
It depends how hard it's raining.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can always Zoom in if we need to. But 6:30 this Tuesday, we'll be giving an information session on our upcoming course on emotional intelligence, specifically the 5 components that Dr. Rachel has mentioned. So we'd love you to register your interest in the information course. You can do that just by visiting my website, which is ONE Natural Therapies, and that ends in ies.com.au. And you'll see we have the events listed on the home page there, and you can register for the information session this Tuesday morning.
And we'll post a link in the comments below.
Definitely.
Yeah. And do you remember our tagline to this course? Something about thriving and change, and I can't remember.
Yes, it is. It's about thriving and embracing change and improving your relationships at home and in the workplace. So all of the things that we've been talking about today.
Okay, great. Well, I will look forward to chatting further about our course, 6:30 a.m. this Tuesday, Brisbane time. And yeah, we'll share the bookings page for the course on the Facebook page intermittently over the next week or two, so that people can be reminded and book in.
Absolutely. And at this stage, we are our official launch. So this information is just going to you guys, our Facebook followers. So please make the most of that, because bookings are coming in. And once we officially launch, we're likely to sell out within a matter of hours. So cash in on that this week. And yeah, the links will all be below. We'd love to see you there. So come and get a dose in person. It's quite a different experience to being online. As we know, in this COVID environment, there's nothing quite like human to human contact. So is there anything else you'd like to share, Dr. Rachel, or do we call it a day?
I'll just share some links in the comments below that I think are particularly excellent around emotional intelligence. And yeah, that's it from me. I'll look forward to jumping back online with you in person on Tuesday morning.
Beautiful. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining in. Thanks for your comments. And
thanks, everyone.
Emotionally intelligent.
All right. Thanks, Alexis.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.